to have interesting conversations with people in tech. Today I'm here with Luisa, and she's a coworker of mine at Vonage. Hey Luisa, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Doing really well. Thanks so much for doing this with me. And today we are going to be talking about the Vonage AI Studio. So Luisa, what is the Vonage AI Studio?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, right? It's a super fun thing to talk about. So the Vonage AI Studio is actually a AI conversation platform where you can create, and basically anyone create their own AI conversation experiences. So essentially it means you can create AI, voice, and chatbots. And the most fun thing about it is that we can converse with it in natural language. So essentially, like you and I can talk right now, not using any specific kind of keywords or codes to get to where we want. We don't need to press any numbers. We can just say it out as it is, right? And I think even for a non-developer, it can be quite daunting sometimes when you look at certain platforms, they don't really know what to do. So on the Vonage AI Studio, everything is pretty much no code, low code. So really everyone can do it. And I think even the most interesting part really is that, when you can create those AI self-service solutions that you can converse with all naturally, I think it really adds this competitive advantage when a business can make sure that they can communicate with their customers at all times. There's no off hours, no hold time. So to be able to create this, I think really is a badass thing to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. What do you think about the no code movement in general?
I think it's really important. I mean, I do appreciate everyone that does have a very great knowledge of code. I mean, you do, and a lot of my coworkers do. But I am an AI conversation designer. So my job is essentially to make sure that those human conversations we have are adapted to a machine, right? And then to make sure not only that we adapt it in the same way that we would expect to talk, one-on-one with a person, but also to make it super efficient. So we're saving a lot of time for businesses and for business communication to make it very enjoyable and quick for the customer to get wherever they need to be. And if I have a platform that I can do this easily without, getting frustrated because I need to learn a new Python language or a new JavaScript language, and I can just do it with the simple UI that we have with a simple drag and drop principle, I'm very happy. That's all I need to do. So answer the question, I love it. For someone like me, it's exactly what I need to get the job done.
That's really cool. And where does the AI come into play in the AI Studio?
So yeah, the AI comes into play essentially in the background, right? Whenever we take the sentence that we got from the caller, no matter if it's text or voice-based interactions, because we can do both on the studio, right? We can do a text-based conversation over WhatsApp and HTTP, and we can also do a voice-based interaction. And in both cases, the AI comes into play when we take the input we get from the user, and then have to obviously make sure, okay, what does it actually mean? What is he saying? So we analyze into, the either text to speech or speech to text, right? And make sure that we get it into the right place, and then in turn, with the machine algorithms, give out the right response to the caller.
Cool. And what are we going to build today?
So yes, what I want to build, and hold your horses, it's going to be cringy because it's Christmas time, and it's definitely one of my favorite times of the year. So nice. We are going to create an omni-channel demo, because I think omni-channel is a really, really cool thing to look at when you have the ability to connect a text channel with a voice channel, as well as in turn, then in the end, maybe even connect a live person to the whole flow, right? Have the ability every time to branch out and actually connect to a person. You can never know, really, right? You always need to have someone available at some point. So I want to show you how this works on the AI Studio. And the example that I'm going to use for this is actually, this is going to be the cringy part, a company that deals with festive ornaments and festive supplies and festive decoration. And I'm going to, obviously it's a fictional company, and I called it Festive Supplies. So the whole use case starts with user texting the virtual assistant over WhatsApp and asking 3 use cases. One is going to be, where are you located, right? So a simple location being sent over WhatsApp. Another thing would be then to ask them, okay, I ordered something, but when is it actually going to arrive? And the last thing would then be where here the omni-channel goes a step further. Listen, this is not early enough. My package needs to be here, ASAP. What do I do? And then the virtual assistant is going to take that, is going to route it to his voice counterpart. He's going to say, hey, I can give you a call in a second. And then the virtual assistant on the other end is going to route it then to a live person that is going to take this, obviously very sensitive matter of the package needs to be there earlier. So those are always the kind of things that we want to have a human available when it gets to a very sensitive point in the conversation. But we actually want to avoid, obviously, keeping the customer in the loop, right? We still want to have an excellent experience. So this is why we're going to create this whole, all-round omni-channel experience.
Awesome, cool. Are you ready to jump into the demo?
Yes, of course. All right, let's go ahead and share the screen.
Cool.
Okay, so what I am sharing with you guys here now is essentially the way that you guys can request access to the studio. So what you need essentially is a API account. And then once you're logged in, this is obviously usually what you see then, your API dashboard. And the AI Studio button here is on the bottom right there. So it says AI Studio and then Dev Preview next to it. And if you click on it, it will route you to a different page where you can get access to the studio. All right, so let's get cracking with our demo. So this is when you click on Create an Agent, this is the first thing that you will be able to see. So the first thing you can always do is choose what kind of agent type you want to create, right? So here we can either create a telephony agent, WhatsApp agent, or an HTTP agent. So those two are our text-based agents. HTTP, obviously, you guys might know, this is just another version of a text-based agent that you can, embed into any of your services. And then obviously a telephony agent that we will also have created as a next step, right? So let's click on the WhatsApp as our type of agent. Let's click next. So the next thing we're going to do is actually, create the region of our agent. This is usually just something that helps us, to either to kind of like adapt the response time of the agent, and we're going to change it to US because our agent is going to be used in the US, and we're going to call it as the name, right, that we said earlier, which is Festive Supplies. And as our identifier here, we're just going to call it, it's a WhatsApp agent. Then the API key is the one that will show on your on your API dashboard. The language here is going to obviously stay for our demo English, but you do have a couple of other languages to choose from. For example, Hebrew, German, a lot of other dialects in English that you can choose from, a lot of accents, and then our alpha languages that are also currently available for you to test and play around with. And then the time zone, this is something that doesn't really affect the functionality of your agent at all. So for our use case today, we're just going to choose UTC. I'm going to click next and create our agent. So the first thing that we can do here is then just either pick one from the templates, but we actually want to create an agent from scratch. We don't want anything pre-built. So we're going to click on Start from Scratch and click Create. And it takes a small minute and we're ready to get started. So the first thing that you see here, obviously, is the building canvas, right? So the big start module in the beginning that initiates the conversation. And then we have a couple of tools here that can help us to guide, around the canvas. And then the most important part really is here, the properties and the notes. So the notes are really the most essential part of the conversation, right? So those are the building blocks of every conversation. Each one of those little building blocks here that we call notes, right? They play a huge part. Only together, they actually create the flow. So we connect each of those nodes to one another and then create our conversational flow. And as I said earlier, it's a very simple drag and drop principle. No need to click on it. You just click it and drag it into the middle of the page and it will actually pop up. And I'll show you how that looks like in a minute. So we do have a couple of nodes here that, for example, guide the conversation as to giving out simple, straightforward responses to the caller, or to the user in this case, because we're doing WhatsApp. So it will be a text message that would just, just something to say, but we're not actually expecting something in return. We can send a location to the user. We can collect input from the user. We want to ask them, why are you calling in for today? And we can also have, action notes that can send emails, can send via an API request certain values to a third-party service and retrieve, obviously, data from a third-party service, send SMS as well. And then I think the second part of the platform really is under Insights. We're not going to go into depth here now, but under Insights, after you create the conversation, you could then go in and say, hey, I want to actually monitor now my virtual assistant. I want to see what this is all about and actually see what each conversation got up to, and then improve my conversation that I created. So I could go in there and see all of the calls one after the other and adapt my conversation as needed if I wanted to. So we said we're going to create 3 little use cases for our WhatsApp agent today. So let's get started. And I think the first most natural thing to do for every virtual assistant is to have the greeting message, right? A simple, straightforward greeting. And we're going to do that with the text message node. Let me zoom out a little bit so we have a little more space. Let's make sure the first thing we want to do is connect the nodes to one another. It's like the most important rule of the Vonage AI Studio, connect your nodes. And then obviously when we click on this node here on the right hand side, it's going to pop up a little, just another page where we can make our adjustments. So we set a welcome message, right? So we're going to add here just a simple welcome to Festive Supplies. I am Festive Supplies virtual assistant. And we're going to click save, and then we already have our greeting done. So the next thing we want to do is collect, obviously, the request from the user. Why are they messaging us? What can we help them with at this point? So we're going to do that with the collect input node, obviously very well named, right? We're collecting something from the caller. Let's connect it real quick. And let's click on it here. And then you have this whole beautiful page that pops up with all kinds of different functionality. So the first thing we want to do here is actually prepare a little storage place for our value that we're collecting from the caller. And in this case, obviously, let's do it with the parameter. We have a whole set of global parameters to choose from, but what we actually want to do is create a new parameter. And as I said, parameters are really just there to help us extract and store information from the user throughout the whole conversation if needed, if not recollected or emptied during the session. And we want to create a new parameter, in this case, usually for the greeting, when we want to collect the initial question of the caller, of the user, we're going to do a topic as a name. And as the entity here, entities are essentially lists of values that we're trying to match the input against that we get from the user. So in this case, we're going to pick sysany as our list of values. And essentially imagine a list of values as when you want to, for example, give out a credit card number and you ask the user, what is your credit card number? And obviously we're expecting then, no matter if it's a machine or a human, to get a number. So entities work exactly like that. They expect a certain type of input. So if I would, for example, want to collect only numbers for my credit card example now, I would go to sys numbers. Those are all kinds of predefined entities by us that already come as predefined list of values. So sys number would be the right choice for a credit card example, because then the input we're getting from the user would then be matched to the entity and would say, okay, great, I'm getting this kind of value from the caller and I'm going to save it in this entity. But for our example today, actually, we're going to go for sysany. And this is very important because we're going here for an entity that allows any kind of input to pass, because as we said earlier, we want the caller to converse in natural language. And that also means that in the beginning of the conversation, we don't want to limit them to any kind of specific input. We want them to really voice what exactly they want to say immediately in the beginning. So we're going to use sysany as our entity, and we're going to leave the value empty. Now let's go back, add our topic parameter, and now under prompts, we can actually add our question here for the user. Why are you contacting us today? Sorry. How can we help you with? So we're going to say, how can I help you today? We can ignore for now the retry prompts and the number of retries, because we said we allow any kind of input to pass, and we're going to click save and exit the node. So now we have our greeting message and our question, how can I help you today? And the next thing we're going to do is classify the input, right? We want to make sure it goes into the right place in our knowledge base. And the best way to do that is with the classification node. So we're going to drag the classification node in the middle of the page, obviously connect it, very important, and we're going to click on it. Now, the classification node, as I said very briefly, is our knowledge base. So everything that the virtual assistant can do, all of its capabilities are stored in the classification node. And the classification node basically stores this kind of knowledge as intents. And each intent can then be one use case. And we said, okay, earlier, we are going to start with our where are you located, right? So we are going to click on create a new intent and add our current use case where you're located. So let's just write here at the office location of our festive supplies store. And we're going to write here in the user expressions all kinds of different examples as to that the user can refer to when they want to ask us where we're located. So for example, where are you located? Or what is your office location? Or something like, where can I find you? Or maybe even, do you have an office? Something like this. Obviously, we usually always recommend to add a couple more sentences to every training expression here. But because this is a demo, I think we're good with these 4. Let's click save and go out. And now we're allowed to select our new office location intent here. And we're going to click save. And we have created our first intent of our knowledge base, our first little use case right here. And we now need to do is actually finish the flow, right? And we said, we're going to give out now the office location. So the office location can be given out via WhatsApp with this node right here called location. So I'm going to drag it right here, going to connect it, and I'm going to click on it here to edit. And it already does exactly what I want. Obviously, it's giving now out the Vonage headquarter address, but I'm going to keep it as that. And all I'm going to change is the name. I'm going to write it as festive supplies, just for the sake of the example, and I'm going to click save. And all this is going to do is when the customer is going to ask us where you're located, is going to send this exact location to the user via WhatsApp. But let's actually also give out a nice little message after something saying that they can always come and hang out with us in our office. So we are going to click here on text message again and say something like, you're always welcome to drop by, and click save. And our first use case is basically done. And now I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of best practice when it comes to conversation design. So we never actually want to have the conversation end here, right? We always want to make sure that we keep the caller interested in the conversation and allow them to voice a couple more things that they want to get done today. So we're going to keep the conversation going by adding another collect input node that is going to ask the user, is there anything else I can help you with today? So I'm going to click on another collect input node. I'm going to connect the 2 nodes. I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to add the exact same parameter that I used earlier in my first collect input node that is asking the user what exactly they can help us with today. So we're going to pick up the topic again. And we're going to write, as I said, is there anything else I can help you with today? And we're going to click save. And we are good to go to exit. And now what we're going to do, because we obviously want to allow the user to actually inquire another question, we're going to connect this collect input node to our classification node right here. So then they can ask another question. So this is our first use case. Giving out a quick little greeting message, collecting the input from the user and classifying it to the correct place in the knowledge base. And obviously then finishing it with our first little use case. Now let's go to our second use case. We said we want to track this customer's order, right? So what we need to do now is create first a new intent in our classification node. So let's go ahead and click on new intent and create a new intent. So let's say something like track package is our intent name, and then add a couple of user expressions. Like, where is my order? When will my order arrive? My order still didn't get here. Where is my package? Can you help me track my order? And something like this. Save, exit, and select our new track package intent. let's click save. So the first thing that we now have created our new intent, what we want to do here is actually ask them for their order number, right? So what we're going to do here is actually add a little new collect input node, and we're going to create a new parameter. This time not with sysAny, because now this time we actually want to collect a serial number for the order number. So what we're going to do is create a new parameter, and we're going to click here on creating a new one and calling it order underscore number. And actually now we're going to choose sys serial number is our entity, and this entity allows us to capture both letters as well as digits. So in true order number fashion, we're going to select that one. Let's pick it up here, and in our text, we're going to say something like, I'd love to help you find your order. May I ask for your order number? Okay, perfect. Then let's go ahead and talk about the number of retries. So in this case, actually, we don't necessarily know whether the caller is going to give us actually something that we can deal with in the entity, something that's going to match our values that we're looking for, right? So we want to make sure that whenever the caller is now not answering with an order number, but with something else, for example, let's say, for example, something is not at all part of our question here, it's just going to ask, I want to order pizza, something completely out of training set. We want to be able to reprompt the caller and ask them, no worries, you can find your order number on the top right of your order confirmation, for example. Are you able to tell me your order number now? So we're nudging them a little bit into the right direction whenever we can't fill the parameter in the first try. And here we can adjust actually the number of retries. So in this case, it will be, for example, 1. So we're allowing the virtual assistant to reprompt the user here once. So let's add our little example here. We're going to say, I'm sorry. Your order number is located on the top right of your order confirmation. Are you able to tell me your order number now? Perfect. And we're going to click save. And now a couple of sentences about these expected input possibilities here. So currently we're only working with text, right? But we do have the ability to also send over as a user an image, an audio file that can also be transcribed here with our ASR into actual text input. We can also send over a file and a location. So those are all kinds of different inputs that we can expect from the user if we want to allow so. So in this case, if I take both of those, now the user is able to reply with either text or an image. But for the sake of the example today, we're going to stay with just text. Let's click save and go out, and obviously connect our two nodes with one another. Now, what we also want to do is actually ask them what kind of product they have been ordering and then what they would like to talk about. So we're going to add another collect input node and ask them for the type of product that they ordered. Let's collect it real quick. And again, we are going to create a new parameter. But in this case, I actually want to show you how entities really work and come together. So we're going to go on properties that act essentially as libraries for everything that we want to use in the virtual assistant. All of our entities, intents, and parameters and contexts as well are stored right here. So let's click on entities and create our own one, because truth be told, we don't have a predefined entity yet that actually talks about this specific company's product types. We're going to click on create entity and just call it, for example, product. This has no effect on the functionality whatsoever. And under value, we're going to say, for example, one of our 3 products could be ornaments. Another one could be lights, for example. And one of the last ones could be just other decoration, right? Because there's a lot more to it than just ornaments and lights. Synonyms, on the other hand, are all kinds of different ways that a user can refer to the value, for example. This is just going to be basically the value that is going to be displayed to the caller, to the user in this case. But ornaments could also be tree ornaments or baubles or anything like that. Lights could be just light or tree lights. Other decorations could be stockings. So all of those things we can add to our synonyms and make sure that the virtual assistant is trained as well as possible. Let's click save and exit, and add our newly created entity to a parameter. So we're going to create a new one, and we're going to call it product, and select our newly created entity just here. It's also going to be part of the predefined list of entities just on the top right here. And now we're going to exit and select this parameter. And here we're going to ask, say thank you. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's do this in the reply buttons just for fun, because we have the ability to do that as well. So as a header, we could do here something like a product type. And here we're going to say thank you. Lastly, may I ask what kind of product you ordered? I'm going to click footer, we don't need. And now we can add our buttons, right? And I think we all know how buttons would look like, but definitely I'm going to show you later on as well. All right, so first button could be here, like we said, ornaments. And then the button value would be our entity value, right? Which was also ornaments. Let's just make sure we're going to type it out, right? Then button title, the next one was lights. And the button value from our entity is also lights. This also has to be, again, the value of the entity. And the third one, we said other decorations. And we said here, other decoration. Let's click save. And we have created our reply buttons message that we're later going to see, obviously, in action. Let's go out, and now we can actually create our webhook that is going to send the API value, the order number in this case, to the third-party service and retrieve our order number, our arrival date, sorry. So let's click on our webhook node, and this is actually, you know, as simple as it gets when sending over a message like this, like in an API request, right? So let's first give it a name. Label would be, for example, again, has no effect on the webhook whatsoever. So we're going to call it very simple, for example, retrieve arrival date. And now we have the ability to send our request URL, to add it here. So here we have our request URL space, and then also the ability to either do it as a get, post, delete, put, or patch request. In this case, we're going to keep it as get, just simply because we're trying to retrieve something, right? So I'm going to simply add our URL here. This is obviously a URL that I have created previously for this demo. So it's going to give us the arrival date with the package number. Now, we also have the headers here. Usually the headers are used for authentication purposes, but for this example, we don't really need it. We also don't need a body. That is obviously usually used for sending over, in this case, large quantities of data. And the query parameters are the last thing that we actually need to add here. In the request parameter, we want to add the exact way that our third-party service is looking to receive the value. So in this case, it's going to be order number. And the value is going to be the way that we're sending over the value. So we're sending it over captured in the parameter. So we're going to do the $, and then we have the drop down here, and we can select our order number parameter that is going to send over the exact order number value that we captured earlier. Now, the last thing to be added here is in the response mapping, our object path and the parameter connected to it. And here in the object path, we need to add this in the exact way that our third-party service is sending over the value. And in this case, they're sending it over like that, $.response. And here we have to add the place that we want to save our parameter value into. And obviously, we didn't have yet a parameter value created, so we're going to do that here. Quickly create a new parameter, calling it arrival date. And just because this is an API request and we don't know exactly in what format they're going to send it over, we're going to use sysany as our parameter here. Let's get out and select it and click right here. If we wanted now to make sure whether our API request actually works before we put it live and have it interact with the customer, we can click on test request and see, okay, is this actually working? And it's obviously going to give me out either, whether it failed or didn't fail. In this case, it was successful, and it showed me that it's giving me out the date as well as the time of arrival. Now, let's assume that we're happy with the value we get, but we actually want to save the customer from receiving the actual hour of when the the package is going to be delivered. So we want to actually now change the value we're receiving from the third-party service from our arrival date only to giving out the date and not the time as well. And we can do that with the custom code node, which is a node that helps us to manipulate and alter values that we retrieve in the conversation. So we're going to click on it. And in this node is really where our little piece of code that we're using in the platform really comes in. So I have a little snippet of code prepared, a little snippet of JavaScript code prepared that I'm just going to post in here. And this code essentially just says, okay, I get the arrival date and the parameter, but please take off the time from it and only leave the date that I can give out then to the user. So in our output parameter, we then have the ability to store it in a different place or store it in the same place. So we can now, for example, decide, do I want to have it overridden? Then I can choose the arrival date as my parameter from before, but I can also create a new parameter and say, okay, I want to store this in a new parameter and keep my old parameter. So I'm going to click on arrival date because I don't really care whether it's going to override it or not. And I'm going to click save, connect my two nodes. And now what's left for me to do is actually give out the message to the user. This is your arrival date. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Let's do that real quick in another collect input node. Oh, 1 second. Let's do this in the text message node. I found your order. Your package is going to arrive, and then we have again the ability with the $sign to enable the drop down to pop up and select our arrival date parameter. And then we're going to connect these two. And then again, we want to obviously keep the conversation going. So we are going to look for our collect input node right here that is going to ask, is there anything else I can help you with? And we're going to connect these two to one another. Now, for our last use case, we obviously said, okay, now we got the arrival date, but we said the customer is not happy with this. He actually wants to have it arrive earlier. So let's really quickly create our last intent that allows them to actually ask to be transferred to a live representative. So we're going to call it route to live person. And we're going to add our training set, something like I want to speak to someone. I want to be transferred. Route me to a human. Or something like I want to speak to a human. Save and exit and select our route to live person intent, and let's click save. All right. So now what we have to do is initiate the call to our second bot, our voice bot that is then in turn going to transfer the call to a live person. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little better. Let's move it down so we can all have a better look at this. What we're going to do first is obviously let the user know you're going to receive a call in the next couple of minutes. Please be next to your phone. So we're going to say something like, I understand, because the question obviously was, I want to speak to a human because this is not early enough. We're going to say, I understand. I am going to route your call to one of my human colleagues. Please be next to your phone in the next minute. Okay, let's click save, connect our nodes. And now again, via the webhook node, we are going to initiate our call to the virtual assistant is going to then answer via voice and give them the call via voice. So let's connect it real quick. And now we're going to use our Outbound API. If you want to replicate this, you can go to our help page and obviously also make use of our Outbound API that I'm going to use now as well. So I'm going to call this webhook, for example, route to representative. And then because this is obviously a little bit different from what we had before. There's actually a post request because I'm actually making the call, right? So I'm going to select now our outbound URL. This is that. And all I need to do here is obviously also change the request, the way that I'm sending it over. And here in the headers, I need to add the VGII key, which is basically another security measures when you're working with the virtual assistants. And this is the current key. And now earlier we said we're only using buddies in very specific cases. And this actually is one of those cases where we want to send over a couple of parameters alongside with our outbound call, because we collected a certain kind of parameter. We collected the product type that we actually want to use in the next virtual assistant. So we're going to add it like this. As you can see here, we now obviously also need to add our sender phone number and add product as our parameter. Again, all of this is done with the dropdown. And let me check. Okay, let's see, send request. I think it actually didn't format it correctly. Let me try again. Okay, better. This is much better. Okay, we're going to do the drop down again. Sender phone number, because this is obviously the sender phone number of the person that initiated the WhatsApp conversation that actually needs to receive the call. Let's try again to add our product parameter. And let's click save. Okay, much better. So nothing was actually changed. And we can go out and we have our webhook in place. Now, the only thing that you might notice here that is not completely finished is these little yellow dots right here that essentially just mean that we now need to also accommodate the case where the virtual assistant fails to understand. So in this case, we can now add a completely different kind of flow that says, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to understand this. I'm going to route your call, for example, or just, please try again later, or anything of that sort. But for the time's sake today, I'm going to leave it as is and just want to recap really quickly the use cases with you. So we have our office location, we have our track package, and our routing to a live person. Now, before we actually want to jump now into the next virtual assistant, we actually also want to test it, right? We could possibly test it already here on the platform if we don't have our phone next to us or our web browser to test the WhatsApp conversation. So we could do that here, clicking on the tester, clicking on Start Agent, and immediately it's going to prompt me with our question here. How can I help you? I'm going to say something like, where are you located? And it's going to send me the location. But obviously, I want to show you also this in the WhatsApp conversation, just so you know you have this ability to test the conversation also in the tester. Now, the last thing we actually have to do before we put this live, before we have to have callers and users interact with this virtual assistant, is to publish it. And I'm going to click here on the top right on this button, and then we can select our WhatsApp business number. Keep in mind here that these numbers don't miraculously appear on the studio. You actually have to, prior to coming here, purchase a phone number on your Vonage API dashboard, and then it will automatically, when you purchase it, assign it to your API key and it will pop up here. This is the number that we purchased for this demo. I'm going to assign it, and my virtual assistant is almost ready after I give it a version name, almost ready to be interacted with, and perfect. It says your virtual assistant has been published. Now, let's actually go now back to our other agent, the voice agent, right? So because this agent is fully finished and done, we can interact with it in a minute. Let's now go ahead and really quickly switch to our voice agent, which is this one right here. And all we want to do here is acknowledge the product of the virtual assistant, of the caller that they purchased earlier. So all we're going to do here is actually first create our parameter, the product parameter that we're sending over. So product. In this case, we don't need to add the specific entity because the value is already being sent perfectly fine. So we're just going to select sys any. We just need product as an entity, and that is all we need. And under notes, all we're going to do here is going to say, in a speak note, for example, we're going to say, hi there, thank you for purchasing something from our, and now we're going to have again the drop down. Let's say, for example, this one could be from our ornament section. I am going to transfer you to our customer care team. Please hold. So we're already letting the user know, now your call is being transferred. So this happens exactly when the customer picks up the call. The virtual assistant is going to say, hi there, thank you for purchasing something from our ornament section. I'm going to transfer you now, as per your request, to a live person. And now we can use actually our call routing node here under the telephony nodes, which are going to route then the call to another person that is going to pick up. Let's click on it real quick and add the phone number. Let's just make sure we're adding it without the 0. Oh, okay, perfect. And let's click double. Let's try again. Okay, perfect. Now let's save it. And again, here we also have to publish our virtual assistant. This one already, because I had it previously created to save time, already has a phone number attached to it, so we don't need to do this again. We can just go ahead now and publish it, and we are good to go, and it will now be able to interact with our callers live. So now, Cory, if you allow me, I would like to actually show this demo live in action. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move my my WhatsApp right here. Let me really quickly do that. Oh, where did it go? There it is. Okay, I'm going to make this really big. Okay, perfect. So let's see if our virtual assistant is ready to interact with us. So we're going to start by saying, hi there. Oh, it says, hi there, welcome to Festive Supplies. I'm Festive Supplies virtual assistant. How can I help you today? I'm going to say, where are you located? It says, oh, Festive Supplies is right there. You're always welcome to drop by. Is there anything else I can help you with today? I'm going to say, yes, where's my order? It's Christmas, it should be here by now. I'd love to help you find your order. May I ask for your order number? I'm going to say, yeah, sure. It's something like ML something something HBH. And lastly, may I ask what kind of product you ordered? So here you can see the use of our point messages. So we can now say, okay, ornaments, lights, or other decorations. We actually went to the light section today, and it's going to say, great, we selected lights. And now it's going to say, I found your order. It's going to arrive on this date. So now you can also see that we actually were able to take away our time from this and only give out the arrival date. Is there anything else I can help you with today? And we're going to say, yeah, of course. This is too late. I want to speak to someone. And now it's going to initiate the call. It's going to say, and here is already the call. And let me quickly take out my headphones and hopefully I don't get connected. And now what this is going to say.
We can't hear. Are you muted? I can't hear anything you're saying.
Good to know that I'm muted when I take out my headphones.
Now I can hear you.
So essentially what it did was that I was able to pick up the call because the virtual assistant initiated the call, right? He called me back on my phone. And then essentially all it did was tell me, okay, thank you very much for purchasing in our ornament section or light section, example that we did here today. And then it transferred me to the live person, which was again on my phone number. So there's like a full-fledged, all-around omni-channel experience where you start with the WhatsApp, and you always have in your repertoire the ability to branch out and allow any kind of communication to take place here, because you can never be sure what kind of communication your customer prefers, right? You always need to be prepared for any kind of eventualities, no matter if it is in conversation design already previously, when you really want to make sure that all kinds of different channels are really treated with the same kind of care. So we started with WhatsApp. We went over to a voice virtual assistant that acknowledged the product type and said, okay, I'm going to route you now to a live person. So full circle.
That is really cool. Hold on, I'm going to refresh because sorry, sometimes the video and audio gets out of sync and it drives me crazy. But so
actually, I'm sorry.
Refresh. That was really, really cool. Sorry, continue. Where were you?
No, I just wanted to say, sorry, you were gone for a moment and I didn't know where you went.
Oh, yeah, I was refreshing the page because it was out of sync. But that was really, that was awesome. That was a really great demo. Thank you so much, Luisa. And Daniela said that was very cool.
No worries, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really, it was fun.
Yeah, a couple follow-up questions. What features can we expect in the future?
So this is a very good question. Yeah, so definitely, all kinds of different omni-channel capabilities, because I really think this is the way to go, right? To make sure every channel is covered, and we're really making sure every customer gets the experience that they want to converse with. So this is really the way to go, expanding our WhatsApp repertoire, making that, a lot more functional. And then just having the ability to connect it, obviously, to all kinds of other Vonage offerings, no matter what kind of VCP product we're talking about here. This is really our goal, to make it like fully omni-channel, fully integratable into virtually anything out there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. I love that you can test it straight from the AI Studio.
Right, right.
You see it in action like that, and all of the drag and drop stuff is really neat. So that's super cool. Thank you so much for showing us that. And is there anything else that you want the audience to know?
Yeah, I think all I want you guys to take from this really is that, we're now here for, 40 minutes, that you can create like a badass kind of experience in that kind of time. And this is like a full-fledged all-around solution. This is not just your general FAQ kind of bot that, handles very simple interactions. This was like an actual virtual assistant interaction that can, support any kind of business out there. So I think to keep in mind that there are platforms out there, such as the Vonage AI Studio, where you can create those kind of simple flows or those kind of complex flows rather easy and very intuitively as well, with a lot of support from either, the conversation design team that I'm part of, or, just if you're more like, study yourself type, you can go into our help center and look at our documentation or our videos that, talk about all kinds of different best practices. So I think it's definitely good to know that there are, things out there, platforms out there where you can create those kind of like awesome conversation experiences with very little time, very little effort, and you get like a really awesome product out of it.
Absolutely. Where can people learn more about the Vonage AI Studio?
Yeah, so definitely sign up to the platform. We would get in contact with you and share anything you need, our help page, our videos, and we could give you access, and we will talk to you. So you're never alone on your journey. If you choose to, we're always here for you. So we'll make sure you're set up with anything you need once you register.
What's the best link for that?
You register right on the dashboard that I showed earlier in the Vonage API platform. So right on the API Studio, on the AI Studio, you click, and then it immediately takes you to a registration page.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do a follow-up and build another one of those, because that was awesome.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.